Northwest Liberty News, picking the lock on the shackles of tyranny.
Machines are going to fail, and the system's going to fail.
The past is past, the future's now.
Don't look at me. I think these people are completely nuts.
Sometimes trouble just follows a man.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus.
Can't you stop your lips from flapping for 2 little minutes?
It's because I'm white.
I'm a man. I'm sensitive. I need to feel loved. I need to be desired.
I'm rapidly becoming a big underground success in this town.
It's a question of methods. Everybody wants results, but nobody wants to do what they have to do to get them done.
And now, coming to you live from Kalispell, Montana, brought to you by Northwest Liberty News, it's Montana Gazette Radio with your host, James White. Okay, so I'm indeed your host, James White. This is Montana Gazette Radio. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the broadcast. Looks like this is the 23rd day of July. Is that right? It is. 23rd day of July, 2021. And we appreciate you joining us here live on the show, here coming to you from Kalispell. And apparently it's going to be, the summer is going to be going back to somewhat normal temperatures this coming week. Spending a string of the 90s over and over again, which is pretty warm around here for full-time weather. So I think that's going to be, we're going to be getting a little bit of relief from that here pretty soon. I'm waiting for Jim Rawles to join the Zoom. I think that by now he's probably either he has some power issues or he has forgotten about the interview, because usually he's here by now, well before now, and logging in, and he hasn't responded to my confirmation. So I don't suspect that Jim Rawles will be here on the broadcast with us today. Here is what he looks like, and he's been on the show numerous times before, but I don't think he'll be here today unless he calls in here while I'm doing this, doing the first hour. But we still, for the second hour, we have David Howard's going to be coming in, former FBI special investigator, back. He's an old school FBI guy back in the day before the FBI were, well, we're going to cover some of that today. The new FBI is not the same as the old FBI. That's what I would say. Anyway, before we get going here on the broadcast, I want to once again encourage you, if you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/Gideon Knox, as you can see that there, and sign up for the upcoming Montana Murder Hornet podcast. There's multiple levels here of signing up. $9.95 a month is the lowest, and then if you're really a big spender, $9.95 a month, and you get a buffalo hunt out of the deal. And we talked about this a couple of days ago when J.D. Hall was on the show. I'm really kind of excited to go on that buffalo hunt myself. I'll be there, I'm sure. I've never been on a buffalo hunt, so this should be good. So if you want to support this broadcast, support independent news, and hear the upcoming Montana Murder Hornet podcasts from he and I will be doing, it'll be a different format than this right here. Of course, as you can see, this is from Montana Gazette Radio, but we'll have a new look. We have be working on a new opening tune and the whole deal. Anyway, please support us on the show. We're supported by you, the listener. Again, if you can go to patreon.com/Gideon Knox, that would be delightful, and we'd appreciate that. Again, we are waiting for the arrival of Jim Rawles, and I would suspect, as I said at this point, former military guy, top-level security clearance. He's an on-time guy, always is on time, unless there's something, like I said, something else has happened. So it doesn't appear that he's going to be with us today, but that's okay. I kind of actually had some stuff ready in case he wasn't. I had some issues that we can cover here in the news, and again, we'll have David Howard here on the broadcast coming up at the top of the next hour at 11 o'clock, and he'll be here talking about some legal matters pertaining to the investigation that I'm working on right now with Whitefish Credit Union, Michigan or Montana's largest credit union here, and I've believe at this point I've uncovered enough to at least launch an investigation, certainly, and perhaps more. So we'll talk about that when David gets on the broadcast. So we are going to. I just got a letter a note, by the way, an email with the confirmation that the computer brain necessary to run the AM and FM type network stuff we're going to be doing here is on the way. When that gets here, I'll have to be trained on the new software, and then we'll be able to start launching 24/7 programming, and I'll be having my show 10 to 12 live every day. And we're going to start off in the Billings market, in that area, and move out and expand across to central Montana, and then move further west is the goal. And we do appreciate your continued support at MontanaGazetteRadio.com and MontanaDailyGazette.com. And soon the goal is to have these broadcasts, when all that gets going, we'll have all these broadcasts on the front page of Montana Daily Gazette. We'll have a new call-in number. We'll have regular guests on, movers and shakers, I guess, in Montana politics, legislators, and that type of thing. And we certainly, again, hope you join us for the ride as we continue to just put out the truth. It's kind of what we do. We don't have anything special going on here. We just tell the truth the best that we know it. Now, again, as we talked about before, are we going to get it wrong occasionally? I'm sure we probably will. Happens. And if we get it wrong, and it's obvious that we've gotten it wrong, we'll print a correction. We have someone joining us here. That wants to join us here on the show. Here, let's see here. I'm probably going to have him pop in real quick and see if JD wants to talk. JD Hall, I think, has joined us here on the show on the Zoom. JD, I think James Wesley Rawles has not reached out, so he's not going to be here, I don't think, today. I have him ready to go, but he's not going to make it, unfortunately, and he hasn't reached back out to me. As I say, he's been on the show several times, and he just isn't. Here, let me hold on here. So not looking like let me pull you in over here. So, let me do this. There we go. All right, there he is, right there, JD Hall. Hey, you're looking very mountain man-like today, JD. That's not you. You're JD Hall. You're not James Rawles. But yeah, Jim. He's as I was stating here, JD. He's a military guy, so he usually is on time, and he is not. He's not. I don't know if there's some power issues going on in this general area, I'm understanding. So I don't know if he's fallen prey to that. But he hasn't connected with us. I know you want to come on and say hey to him, but we'll reschedule with him.
I was going to do the same thing with Matt Trahala, and it doesn't always work out. I find James Wesley Rawles to be fascinating. As a matter of fact, somebody asked me for my favorite book lists, and I separated them from fiction and nonfiction, and pointed out that the Patriot series by James Wesley Rawles made my favorite fiction list of books. But no, I'm not in the studio today. I am at the lake with my family up here at the Fort Peck Dredges. Very nice. We're enjoying some time away just for a couple of days, like we usually try to do once a week during the summer. But no, James Wesley Rawles, we'll have him on next time, and then we'll join you.
Yeah, we'll have him on next time. And I was just doing the Montana Murder Hornet promo here, and I started the show, and he's a great candidate. Guys like James Wesley Rawles as great candidates for those for that. So I think we're going to try to get him on. We're going to try to get him on the Montana Murder Hornet podcast, and other great guests too. You want to take just a minute to talk about that while you're on, JD, and then if you want to bail, I understand. But you want to talk a little bit about the Montana Murder Hornet podcast before you might go?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just the other day we heard that Stripe now they did reverse it finally, but they temporarily withheld our payments. They're the ones that pulled their payment. They're kind of like a financial go-between. So when you go to a website and click donate, Stripe processes the payment and sends it to your bank. They withheld that for a while, and they were one of the first ones to ban President Trump, basically for not liking his speech. We have to have a bill passed in Montana to protect people from their speech. So we have a bill coming in Montana to do just that. And we're going to push it out of the gate at the legislature, not at the first moment. And so we rely upon the direct patronage of our supporters and listeners because, you know, we are now ad free. We didn't realize it until about 10 minutes ago that we still had some ads on the mobile site. But our tech crew took care of that. We're completely ad free, which means we're producing all of this material, and we're not, Jim, like verify, back me up on this. We don't have some millionaire in Montana sending us checks to produce conservative news.
No. I wish. No. Believe me, no. We do not. No, this is all blood.
We are doing this because we're zealots for the truth.
That's right.
That's why. So we have Montana Murder Hornet, and what this is the best. First of all, we have this not just so that you can listen to another podcast. You're already listening to this one. We have this because it's an easy payment portal. So you can give $10 a month, $20 a month, $50 a month, $1,000 a month, whatever you want to give a month to be able to help support and grow our network. The Montana Murder Hornet, though, will come with it a free podcast that's going to be awesome. Check it out. Check out what I do at polemicsreport.com. Well, it's not polemicsreport.com. It's Polemics Report. You can just Google that. Find it on iTunes. You'll see kind of the cutting edge, the sarcasm, the humor that is not appropriate for radio. And so depending upon your level of patronage at the Montana Murder Hornet, you get different levels of stuff. The idea of this it wasn't born, but I decided for sure to do the Murder Hornet when a woman came up to me at Red Pill and she said, "I love your website. Read it all the time. I totally support it, but your ads annoy me." Yeah. And I say, you know what? They annoy me too.
Right. So
I asked her, if you truly support Montana Daily Gazette, would you support us for like $10 a month on Patreon if we could get rid of the ads? And she said, absolutely. So I said, okay, all right. And that's when I called my guys and asked to set it up. By the way, I'm on my mobile device, as you can see, so I can't check my email again because I'm at the lake. I can't check my email and do this at the same time. But Jim, we can now officially announce Montana Daily Gazette Radio in Hardin, Montana. What's the call sign?
KHDN.
Yeah. In which we're going to have conservative talk. Conservative is to put it lightly. Talk radio, blasting 1,000 watts from Hardin. I had a friend who could pick it up in Park City, 20 miles on the other side of Billings and into Forsyth.
Nice.
It is going to, so it will blast all over Billings. And now that will be a thing within about 3 weeks. But the ink is dry. The handshake has been made. So now there is Montana Gazette Radio. By the way, Jim, how much, well, I don't want to get into business agreements. Are there millions of dollars at stake here that are going to are me and you going to move to the Cayman Islands anytime because we have an AM radio station that we're going to run?
Yeah, no, man. No, you know what? We don't have, I know this is going to surprise folks, but unlike Facebook and Twitter, we don't have the White House calling us to put out stories. I mean, or or censor
No.
people. So no, this is a grassroots
Let me
Montana
put it this way:
organization.
it will not make us money to run terrestrial radio. It will cost us money. Is that
That's
a fair
true.
statement?
Indeed, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So support us on Montana Murder Hornet. And without James Wesley Rawles here, I was just going to be a fanboy for a little bit because I love the man. I don't think that I'm going to stick around much longer.
No, I can dig it. Yeah, sure. No, that's all right. I'm going to cover a couple of things here. I'm going to hit the Montana Daily Gazette, cover some of the things that we're covering there, and then I got David Howard coming on at 11. So I appreciate you popping in. Yeah, this is the first time that James hasn't showed up for an interview. I've interviewed him 10 times. So he's got some power probably issues or something like that. I'm imagining technical issues. Otherwise,
knowing James Wesley Rawles, he lives in the middle of nowhere and is having his generators refurbished.
Yeah, that's probably something similar to
if
that.
I had
Yes.
to guess.
Yeah, I would agree. But we'll get him back on. He's always very gracious to come on the show and interview. He doesn't do a lot of interviews, but he's, like I say, he's always very gracious to interview with me. So we'll get him back on next week. JD, I appreciate you coming by. Do you want to give out any websites before you go?
Yeah, MontanaDailyGazette.com and also MontanaMurderHornet.com. MontanaMurderHornet.com. And sometimes there's a glitch as to whether or not that takes you directly to the website. So just type in Montana Murder Hornet Patreon and sign up for as little as $10 a month to support us. We do our best every day, every single day to support you. I'm at the lake with my family. As soon as I'm off the radio, I'm pulling out my laptop and I'm going to be pushing out some articles for the Montana Daily Gazette, including one about a pastor from up in Missoula who is literally being persecuted for his faith by his community because they decided to shove LGBTQ propaganda into the bags that his church was handing out for hungry kids. The church took the coloring books out, of course, because they wanted to feed people, not give them propaganda. And now the community is mad at them. By the way, I just want to throw this out here. I'm going to see Jim in Kalispell this weekend. I'm going to be broadcasting Brent Allen Winter's radio program. I don't know, is that the right word, broadcasting? I'm going to be a guest on Brent Allen Winter's radio program at 9 a.m. And then we're going to use Jim's studio for one of my podcasts at 10 a.m. And that night at 5-ish o'clock, Teresa Manzella is hosting a fundraiser for one of your local senators. I forget who, Jim, maybe you know. Was it the fellow that brought the anti-trans bill? Something like that.
I'm
going...
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to be talking Saturday night in Kalispell at that event about the trans LGBTQ agenda and in particular Montana. So I'll be in Kalispell and be in studio on Saturday before a 9-hour drive home.
That's not tomorrow, folks. That's a week from tomorrow, the 31st.
A week from tomorrow.
Tomorrow, don't forget, if you're in anywhere near the St. Regis area or within that vicinity, tomorrow there's going to be a Red Pill Festival there in St. Regis. Our own Teresa Manzella is going to be there. Derek Skis is going to be there. Jordan Page is going to be there. He's a great musician. Bob Brown's going to be there. So if you want to go there and support Patriots, it's a great time to go out there to St. Regis. I'll be there and doing some on-spot video interviews and covering that event. So big stuff coming up here in the Flathead Valley and surrounding areas, JD. So we're delighted. And other stuff too that we're not going to mention just yet, but it could get really exciting around here at some point in the next 5 to 6 weeks. But we're going to hold off on that, and we'll report that when the time comes. JD, anything else you want to say before we let you go?
No, that's it, brother. Thank you so much. Other than you're a sinner, I'm a sinner. We're all sinners, and that's why we all need a Savior, and His name is Jesus.
Amen to that. Very good,
all
sir.
Right.
Thank you so much. Be safe.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Peace. All right, there goes JD Hall. We appreciate him being here on the show with us. Again, folks, we apologize that James Wesley Rawles didn't make it. Again, I'm sure everything's okay with Jim. I just don't know what happened. Maybe he's just, as I said, maybe has some power issues or generator issues. Who knows? But we'll have him back on the show again here coming up probably next week. I'll reach back out to him again. He'll probably reach back out to me when he gets back his coverage back, because I sent him a message, and he probably just hasn't received it. Once he does, he'll reach back out to me, I'm sure. We'll have him back here on the broadcast. Okay, what we're going to do here real quick is we're going to take a quick commercial spot here, and then we come back. We're going to hit some of the news here from Montana Daily Gazette and other locations, other news sources, and then we will bring David Howard on here coming up in about 40 minutes or so. And we're going to talk about some of the investigations that I've been doing, specifically the investigation into Whitefish Credit Union. He's had a chance to review the documentation. He's a former FBI special fraud investigator. Worked in the banking. He worked in the FBI in the banking, the bank fraud unit as well while he was in the FBI. I know he helped take down some crooked judges in Chicago. So he's got some experience when it comes to fraud, and he's going to be here to talk about that and other things when he shows up here at 11. So we do appreciate you tuning in. MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaDailyGazette.com. We'll be back after these brief messages. If you like classic cars, exceptional service, and a money-back guarantee, then the Corner Shop in beautiful downtown Kalispell is the place for you. Whether it's an oil change, engine diagnostic, suspension work, or brakes all around, the Corner Shop has you covered. With expert technicians and a free consultation on all services, you can't go wrong with the Corner Shop. Did I mention the classic cars? While you're waiting for your expert service to be performed, take a stroll through the showroom to see Kalispell's smoothest collection of classic cars. The Corner Shop is conveniently located at 1212 South Main, just south of the courthouse. The Corner Shop is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., so drop by for an appointment or call 755-7777. That's 755-7777. The Corner Shop, Kalispell's full-service auto repair facility. Hi, this video is brought to you by PatriotPrepared.com, where right now you can save $250 on each large package purchase, plus get free shipping to the continental United States. In these troubled times, it's not a bad idea to have some extra food storage available, and you can save big at Patriot Prepared right now. Go to PatriotPrepared.com, that's PatriotPrepared.com, and use the code TRUMP250 at checkout to receive your savings today. Okay, folks, if you don't have any storable food yet, now's a good time to get it before it's too late. And I would sound dramatic when I say that, but have you ever seen times like this before in your life? I mean, seriously, with what's going on? I haven't. So something's up. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I know that you're going to need to eat no matter what, and have, potable water, water filtration, a way to eliminate waste even. Who knows how bad it's going to get. And you can find all those products and much more over at PatriotPrepared.com. That's PatriotPrepared.com. And there's some good deals on some big bulk food purchases. If you want to get a large supply of food, right now is the time to do it. Just put the code in there at the website, and you can enjoy those savings today. And it'll be shipped right out pretty quickly, and in your door here probably within a week. So before the rush comes on, what happened last time with the COVID, I mean, it was like 5-6 weeks behind on shipping. So don't wait. Right now is the time. PatriotPrepared.com. That's PatriotPrepared.com. Okay, so we're gonna talk about, the crooked FBI. I don't know how else to put it. If you go here to the Federalist, the Whitmer kidnapping case reveals the FBI's new counterterrorism target is you. Now, I've been talking about this, folks, for a long time, as a matter of fact, and others have. But again, let's once again bring up the 1993 World Trade Center attempted bombing, where they put if you remember that, they put a truck filled with explosives underneath the tower, blew up the truck in hopes, I believe, to bring the tower down, and they failed in their attempt. However, the more important part of that is Rashad Salam, who was the guy that they tried to make a patsy. They tried to set the whole thing up and utilize this guy as a patsy. Rashad Salam, look it up, don't take my word for it. And he sort of outsmarted him because he realized he was getting set up. So he started recording their conversations and created a giant file filled with transcripts of the conversations that they had had. And his attorney showed up and had a giant stack of papers with all of the transcripts that these FBI agents, the correspondence with this guy, Rashad Salam, to set him up as a patsy for this bombing. And you never really heard Rashad Salam's name much after that, now did you? No, you didn't. Because they had the goods on him. And I got a phone call coming in there. Sorry about that. I guess people don't sometimes realize I'm broadcasting live right now. So this is not uncommon. This is a normal thing. The infiltration of the FBI into groups, and like I believe was stated in this particular case here, and I don't know if it's going to be mentioned in this article, but it was determined, I believe, by a judge that was reviewing the case that this may never have even ever happened had the feds not been involved, the FBI not been involved, meaning the FBI jumped in, really and hatched it, initiated it, and coordinated it just to capture, I guess, Trump voters, Trump supporters. Who knows what their motivation is? I don't. All I know is there's a whole lot of them involved in this. And let's pop over to this right now and take a look. When is this article? This article can't be too long ago. I don't know what it is, what date it is. I don't know if the date's on there, but it's July 23rd, so it is as today. Let's look here at this article from the Federalist. The Whitmer kidnapping case reveals the FBI's new counterterrorism target is you. What's interesting about the revelations from this week is not that the FBI is up to some new, clever gambit to combat the wily insurrectionists in our midst. This week included interesting revelations about the FBI's case against a handful of people charged with plotting to kidnap the governor of Michigan. Of 14 people indicted, 5 or more were working as informants for the FBI. As Revolver has noted, the 5 people who seemed to be FBI informants were also the people who seemed to have all the kidnapping ideas and access to all the equipment needed for a paramilitary assault on Governor Whitmer's vacation home. At one point, the leadership of the conspiracy met, and 3 of the 5 people in that discussion were FBI. I worked in counterterrorism for more than 10 years, so I understand all the reasons a federal agent would argue this isn't technically entrapment. The people didn't know they were surrounded by federal agents and continued to take overt actions that advanced the fantasy conspiracy, and that's illegal. Okay, fine. But this has not got me thinking about some of the old ISIS and Al-Qaeda cases I reviewed when I was helping prosecute terrorists who actually killed people. So it comes down to the case like we've talked about before on this show. If you look at the January 6th, what they call an insurrection, the worst attack on American soil since 1830 or whatever they say, you will look at who were involved in that, and you come to find out that there is a presence of FBI informants involved in that as well. Do we know? No, they won't release a lot of the tapes. They won't release a lot of the footage that was captured during that time. It's not being released, so no. There's no really good way to grasp that except to note that, yeah, there was some FBI informants involved in that. FBI informants involved in the Whitmer kidnapping case. FBI tried to set up Rashad Salam, and this has happened over and over again. Over and over and over again. Now, we've reported on this on Montana Daily Gazette as well. If you remember these stories that we released here, begin first month of the year in January, FBI credibly accused of corruption and fake bomb threats in Bozeman. And also we followed up with the Bozeman FBI agents guilty of hardcore racism against Asian American business owner. And I actually had the video. I named the names here and had the video of one of these FBI agents being served summons by summons server. They recorded it. Now, is this a shock to anybody? And am I saying all FBI agents are bad everywhere? No, of course not. I mean, that would be preposterous to think that all FBI agents are bad. And it's just as preposterous when Sean Hannity comes out and says, oh, 99% of them are good. It's only the 1% at the top that are really causing problems. That's wrong as well. Right? So the problem with even having a handful of corrupt FBI agents is that they have such tremendous power and ability to do just about anything they want, up to and including, as you can see, setting up kidnapping plots, supplying the plans, supplying all the quote-unquote paramilitary equipment necessary to pull off that plan. This is a very powerful agency that can do a whole lot of damage, can shut down your bank accounts, we've got cases of them, threatening landlords of people they don't like, forcing them to move, breaking contracts. It's not a very good position to be in, to have a bullseye on your back and have the FBI, aiming, having the ones that's targeting you, right? It's not a good thing. However, that is a normal thing, sadly. When I say normal, it means it happens all the time. Now, there's some genuine cases that get busted, and well, sure, some things need to be done for optic purposes. Now, the ironic part is here, we're going to be having our second guest here today is going to be former FBI agent David Howard, who now is a senator. He's going to be here on the show, and as I stated though, but David Howard, in my view, is the old school FBI. Before, I think the modern FBI, sadly, you almost have to join or quit. You almost have to join up with the corruption or quit. You know how it operates, right? If you're part of the FBI hit squad or part of the team, and you witness corruption, and you don't participate in it, then they don't have anything sort of quote unquote on you, but you have something on them. So next time you go into a raid and you bust through the door first, you just happen to get shot with a shotgun that was hidden and concealed by the perp, and you're both dead now, and then there's a throwdown, and hey, I hate to say that, but that happens. If you're not willing to play ball and you're trying to be the straight arrow in a bunch of crooked arrows, you stand out and you put yourself in peril. And that's happened plenty of times in the past. And we need more people to come out and whistle blow. That's the thing that gets me. You got a guy like Sean Hannity, 99% of them are good. If there were that many of them that are good and they could see the corruption, the obvious corruption, why aren't they speaking up? Why aren't they coming out and speaking up? I know there's a thin blue line. There's a brotherhood, apparently. Well, obviously there is, but that is apparently what is I guess causing them not to speak out. Don't know. I know if you're an internal affairs guy, I don't know. I'm not a police officer, never been one. But what I'm understanding, if you're internal affairs, you're not exactly the most liked guy, in the department. But somebody has to do that sort of stuff. We need a little bit more internal affairs in all of these law enforcement agencies. And I'm not anti-law enforcement. Like anything else, I'm anti-corrupt law enforcement. Now, to saying that, I do believe that the sheriff should be the proper law enforcement agency in your whole county. But that's, we're a long way away from there. And ultimately, you would have the constitutionally mandated citizens militia in your community, and the actual law enforcement is taken up by the community. And that is that's the real old school. Talk about old school FBI. That's the real old school security force right there, is the citizens militia. But even to state that term, right, you're demonized because you're even using that term. You can't even know what did we hear? Some talking head on one of these fake news programs are saying now that the term patriot, you got to really be weary of people that use the term patriot. That now is a new. That's the new snowflake. That's the new snowflake killer right there. The word patriot. That is that's the new demonization phrase. I'm a patriot. Then if you say I'm a patriot, then you are something. You are bad. You are anti-American, I guess. You are a terrorist, I guess. You are all these things that they label you. And you have to understand, folks. You have to realize. Anytime you're like in a debate, or anytime you're in like you're trying to. I wonder who someone's here. Interesting. We have someone calling into the show here. I don't know. Could probably only be Jim Rawles. Let's see. Hello, who am I speaking with?
Hey, is this James? This is Jim Rawles.
Hey, Jim, how you doing, man? This is
I'm doing
James.
good. I'm so sorry I'm calling you late. I got busy driving T-posts and lost track of time.
I figured something like that had happened, Jim. I was just covering some other things here. Let me get my own view off here, and what I'll do is I had your image on the show here a little earlier, and I'll pop that up again. First of all, thanks for joining us here. We have Jim Rawles. Let me give you a proper introduction. We have James Rawles here. I actually have a bio ready for you, Jim. Let me pop it up, and we'll catch it for the last half of the show here. Joining me is James Rawles. He's a survivalist, author, and lecturer. He's a founder and editor of Survival Blog. Jim is a former U.S. Army intelligence officer and now works as a full-time blogger and freelance writer. He's been an enthusiastic survivalist since his teenage years, as he grew up in the bomb shelter era, and that mindset never wore off. Jim has authored several best-selling nonfiction and fiction survivalist books. His expertise is primarily in retreat security, food storage, firearms communications, first aid, and off-grid power systems. Jim has a BA degree in journalism from San Jose State University with minor degrees in military science, history, and military history. He serves as a U.S. Army Intelligence Corps officer and held a top-secret security clearance with SCI access. He attended the Army NBC Defense Officers Course, as well as Northern Welfare School at Fort Greely, Alaska. Before resigning his commission as a captain, Jim worked numerous live intelligence gathering and analysis missions overseas at the tactical and strategic level. James Wesley Rawles, thanks so much for joining us here on the show today. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I knew you're probably outside doing something like Jim, where you had some power issues or generator issues, but thanks so much for being here.
I wish it was something as simple as power generation, but it's more like operator headspace and timing. I was out driving T-posts for a new cross fence that we're putting in, and I lost track of time. So my apologies. But yeah, let's make the best of this last half hour of the show.
Absolutely.
Where would you like to start?
Well, Jim, first of all, thanks for always being so gracious to come on the show. Let's just give you a 30,000-foot view of things. I mean, I see stuff playing out here right in front of us that you've been talking about for a long, long time. We're seeing, there's no doubt about it. They're trying to deliberately crash this economy. The amount of illegals going across the border is at record levels. Price inflation is just off the charts. I mean, a pile of lumber is 3, 4, 5 times what it used to be before. Housing prices are going to the moon. I mean, it just seems like everything is all breaking down at once, and it all seems to be planned. Do you care to just comment on that just off the bat, Jim?
Well, I have to agree with you. I think we're right in the middle of a pandemic, and obviously what's going on economically is a direct result of the gross overspending that the government has done, supposedly to stimulate the economy during the time of the COVID pandemic. But what we're really doing is borrowing against the credit of our grandchildren. They're the ones who are really going to pay for this, because obviously it's absolutely sealing the fate of the United States dollar. At this point, the debt is absolutely unrepayable. And at some point, there's going to be a break in the dollar on the Forex, and we're going to see the dollar crash. We're going to see interest rates spike. We're going to see bank runs, a stock market crash. It'll look a lot like the first chapter of my novel, Patriots. So I recommend to your listeners that they take this opportunity during this little lull before the inflation really kicks in to diversify into tangibles. And my favorites there are silver and common caliber ammunition, magazines for the most commonly available guns like AR-15s and M1As and HK91s and FALs, for example. It's important to stock up physically for survival in terms of storage food, but in terms of being prepared to barter and to preserve some of your wealth in the dollar crash that's to come, get into tangibles, buy productive farmland, and again, tangibles like silver, firearms, ammunition, and magazines.
Jim, let's say some people are limited on their funds and they can only pick up a little bit at a time. Are things like toiletries, like feminine products, things like toilet paper, things like even alcohol, even, cigarettes, even the cigarettes are expensive, but even things like that, like little tubes of trial-sized toothpaste, are even things like that going to have some value if it gets as bad?
Oh, sure, yeah. And in fact, for barter purposes, think in terms of small, easily traded items that are always sought after. So things like laundry detergent that stores for years, and a jug. In fact, already in the inner city areas, a jug of laundry detergent is already a barter item. So that's an ideal one. You mentioned quite a few others, and I won't reiterate those. But again, I'm a big believer in common caliber ammunition. Things like 45 automatic, 9mm, 38 special, 223. 308, 12 gauge, and 22 long rifle. Those are the kind of things that'll be in the greatest demand for barter. And the nice thing about ammunition is not only does it have almost universal appeal, but it's fungible, which means that you can divide that. Every item in a box of cartridges is identical. So have equal value, but that box of cartridges can be divided, depending on the size of the box, 20 ways or 50 ways for multiple barter transactions. And the shelf life of ammunition is also excellent if you keep it in sealed cans, or if you can't find ammo cans, just use Tupperware that you can find at any thrift store.
You know what I try to stress on this show, and when I've had my survivalist episodes, people are really concerned about storable food, and they should be. But I think one of the key items that people don't really think about is the elimination of waste. If there is a water issue, or the backup, or something happens with the sewer system, or the plant goes down, or the electricity goes out with that, that's where a lot of disease and a lot of death occurs. Is, unclean, unsanitary conditions, body disposal, that type of thing. How important is it to have?
That'll affect the suburbs and even small towns, not just the big cities. So if possible, relocate to a rural area where you're on a septic system, and preferably a place where you have gravity-fed spring water. That's just about ideal. But if you can't get that, at least find a place where you can have a shallow well and a photovoltaic well pump. And as long as you've got water and a septic system, then you have a safe, clean environment, plenty of drinking water, plenty of water for gardening, and you're not going to be dying of, something silly, stupid, like the people who are going to be dying in the big cities simply because their toilets are backed up.
Yeah, indeed. If you can, Jim, talk how important it is to get hooked up with a local church. I know, these days there's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. There's a lot of phony pastors and a lot of false teachers. But, if you pray about that and get past that and find a good church, how important is that to have that sort of that church community, sort of have your back? I mean, I think that's, if you can find a good
absolutely.
church. Go ahead, talk about that.
First and foremost, everyone needs to get right with God and accept Christ as their Savior. And one of the fringe benefits is that you'll end up in a body of believers where they're people of like faith, and you'll be able to depend on them when times get really rough. So I really recommend that someone put finding a good church home right at the top of their list when they're looking to relocate. Look for that church first, and then look for the productive farmland that's, has a shallow well and all that good stuff. Your church should come first.
And if you're looking for, and we had Pastor J.D. Hall on the show a few times here, and he's talked about, I asked him, what's a good qualification if you're relocating and looking for a good church? He goes, well, ask the pastor if they closed down during the COVID thing. That's be a good indication. If they stayed open and they defied the government, that's probably the kind of church that you may want to look into. What's your thoughts on that advice, Jim?
Oh, I agree with that completely. Also, look for churches that don't consider themselves 501c3 exempt, because it'll be the churches that don't covet that tax exemption, where the pastors will be able to feel free to speak their minds and to preach the gospel without any reservation. And that includes, the portions of the Bible that deal with sexual morality. That may become just about illegal for a tax-exempt church in the near future. So look for churches that are, there's an organization called the, it sounds like a contradiction in terms, but there's an organization called the Unaffiliated Church Coalition, the UCC. Look for churches that are not affiliated with major denominations, because those major denominations will seek tax exemption, and they'll put pressure on the local congregations to water down the gospel. And then look for churches that are not 501c3 exempt.
It was stated to me, Jim, and I want to get your thoughts on this. And I hadn't really thought about it this way until it was told to me. With all the lawlessness that you see going on here, and people just literally walking out of department stores carrying hundreds of dollars of merchandise just right out the front door. Seems like cities are breaking down into, pulling people out of their cars and executing them on the streets. It's been said that God has lifted his protection on the United States. I'm not saying that he won't put a hedge of protection around his individual believers or, the remnant. But as far as the United States, it's been suggested that God has removed his protection from this country because of the many sins we've created, we've really been involved in the murder of unborn children being probably the most heinous, I think, to the Creator. Any thoughts on that, Jim?
Oh, I agree with you entirely there, and I think that the highest level of organization that we can expect God's hand of protection would probably be at the state level, because certainly at the federal level, we've turned our backs on God. And having the Trump administration be a friend of Israel might have bought us a few years, but if anything, at this point, all we can expect is God's wrath. So get right with God and team up and train up with like-minded Christians, and try to relocate if you can, but don't expect any hand of protection on our nation. We only deserve God's judgment, his wrath at this point.
We're hearing, it's been reported that there's a consortium of other states that are going to get to, or the countries are going to get together, and they're just going to drop the dollar all at once. Because, historically, countries that have tried to get out of the dollar hegemony, they've been, their leaders have been executed and they've been overthrown, and the central banks have been installed. I guess my point of that is, how important, Jim, is it to barter? I mean, there should be, you should probably be looking to get bartering networks already set up in your community if possible, because that's the old school way, right? I mean, you're a carpenter, you can make a table, and this guy grows vegetables, and then you guys can do a little trade-off, and that doesn't have to go through anybody.
Right. When the dollar is worth nothing, you're going to have to fall back on that. I think the best way to get involved with bartering at the community level is do a web search on CSA, which stands for Community Sustainable Agriculture, CSA. And through CSA organizations and local farmers markets, you can network with people. And you'll probably end up networking with some people who, probably wouldn't normally even associate with. A lot of Birkenstock wearing, green type folks who, look like they're leftover hippies from the 60s or something. But some of those folks will be very valuable friends when times get tough, because they're the ones who know how to really grow a garden and know how to raise small livestock. So get in tight with your local farmers market, get to know folks. Of course, be very circumspect about what you say about your preparations or your politics, but at least be ready to barter with people in your community. And getting involved with an organization like that will give you a good finger on the pulse of your community. It'll also let you know who you can trust and who you can't trust.
Jim, I have to say here, I'm on your Amazon page, the Prepper Survival Guide, Survive the End of the World as We Know It, Patriots, Tools for Survival, Founders, Expatriates. Jim, it looks almost like you're prophetic with what you're writing here for I guess my question to you is, how'd you know? How'd you know? What school is, Jim?
I just have interesting dreams and write them down. I actually wrote the first draft of my novel Patriots the winter of 1990-1991, and it first hit the internet in 1993 or 4.
Wow.
I don't claim to be a prophet, though. I just use the same critical thinking skills that I developed as an intelligence officer, and looked at the vulnerabilities that exist and the fragility of our society and drew some logical conclusions. And unfortunately, a lot of what I did write has turned out to be fairly prophetic, certainly in terms of government overspending. I do recommend that folks take full advantage of all the resources that are out on the internet free of charge before they go buying any of my books. I'm not on your show to promote my books.
Oh, I know you're not.
In fact, my blog, survivalblog.com, has been published for 15 years now. There's more than 30,000 archived articles, letters, and quotes that are fully searchable. It's all free of charge. Again, it's survivalblog.com. And yes, if there's some gaps in your knowledge, if you want to get one of my books, feel free, folks. But again, there's a lot of information that's out there available free of charge. Again, it's survivalblog.com.
No, Jim, I've been interviewing you for years, my friend, and you've never been on here to hawk your stuff. That's for sure. You've given away most everything you've done has been free. Most everything. I mean, you've written books, but I mean, more people have visited your blog. I mean, I can't tell you how many countless millions have visited your blog, and the repository of information that you have on there. I mean, I don't think you removed anything. Don't you have stuff all the way back from the beginning? I mean, all the way
back to 2005.
Yeah.
Yes, we
years.
do. And I recommend that folks not patronize Amazon if they can avoid it. Please patronize your local bookstore first. Or if you have to buy books online, I like the service called Books A Million, BAM. Amazon has gotten incredibly political recently. They've begun censoring people, especially about the anti-vaccine movement, for example. They just plain deleted people's books. Here we've got a situation where people bought books on Amazon for their Kindle, and then they go look for those books later on their Kindle, and they are gone. They've literally, it's like digital book burning. They've literally just deleted books that existed that people bought and paid for.
It's true.
Amazon is evil, so please try not to use Amazon. Use it as little as possible.
Well, Jim, we got about 5 minutes left here. I know that we had that. We'll have you back on here again in the next 6 weeks or so, and we'll do a full interview. But we've all hope is not lost. Let's talk, if we can, here the last 5 minutes or so. I mean, everybody, no matter how bad it's going to get, a lot of people are going to get through this and to get on the other side. It's not going to be a fun place to be, I think, in the short term. But I think perhaps in the long term, we do have an opportunity here maybe to do something better in this country than we've had for a long time. Give us your overall thoughts on that, Jim. Am I being too optimistic, or do you think there is on the other side of all this, there will be a better place?
Well, I think we'll be a better nation, and we'll be more in fellowship with God, but we're in for some very rough times, and we might even be on the cusp of the tribulation. I don't know. All I do know is I feel strongly convicted to prepare and to encourage people to prepare, and that's why I started Survival Blog. That's why I wrote my first novel, and why I write my nonfiction books. Get prepared, folks, and if by God's grace we still have a few years to get our act together, please team up, train up, stock up, and if you have the opportunity, if you're at that stage of life where you're either self-employed or you're retired and you can relocate, by all means, consider relocating soon so you get a chance to get a retreat set up and get all that infrastructure in place, like a wood stove and your off-grid power system and your water system, and you get your garden in, get your fruit and nut trees planted. All that takes time. So pray that God would grant us that time, and then take full advantage of the time that we do have available. The time for dawdling is over.
Oh yeah, it's way over. It's way over. James Wesley Rawles, always great to have you on the broadcast, my friend. We're delighted, even though like you said, you'd had some things that you were doing with the pounding in the post. We're still glad you showed up. Thanks for calling. Even having you on here for 20 or 30 minutes was great. You want to give out your website just one more time, Jim? You don't really do any speaking engagements, and you don't really go and travel around and do speaking engagements. I don't think you've ever done
No,
that.
I do some podcasts like this, some radio interviews. But take full advantage of the resources that are out there, folks. In addition to podcast archives like James's show here, dig into many of the other podcasts that are out there that deal with practical preparedness topics, family survival type topics, homesteading. Dig deep, folks. And for the articles that you find on the internet, you find the most useful, you might want to start printing some of those out and create a hard copy binder for your future reference, because there may come a day when the grid is down and the internet's down too, and those information sources will be gone unless you have them in hard copy.
Survivalblog.com, folks. Survivalblog.com. Find that great information and much, much more there on that website. James Wesley Rawles, thanks so much for your patriotism and all your work, my friend. You've really you've probably saved countless amounts of lives with your work, and I know you. I don't know if you're not the kind of guy that sit back and take the kind of credit, but I'm gonna say it for you. You've probably ended up saving thousands of lives, if not more, with the work you've done. And thanks so much, my friend. We appreciate all you've done.
Thank you so much, James, and God bless you and your listeners.
God bless you too, buddy. Take care, man. All right, there goes James Wesley Rawles, folks. One of the probably the original preppers. And I just didn't say that. I meant that. He's probably saved thousands of people's lives with the work that he's put out, and the preparedness tips and the books that he's written, and he's just top notch. And we're always delighted to have him here on the show, and we're glad that he came in, even if it was a little bit late. Okay, so we have another guest here coming up here right now that he's waiting here in the wings, and we are going to invite Senator David Howard to the show. Let's let Senator Howard in here. I have it already set up, I believe, to bring him in here on this particular screen. So we'll get him on here. He may have stepped away from his machine, but we'll have Senator David Howard here in just a moment. He's a current Montana State Senator, and he is a former FBI agent. And I think I can hear him, but I can't see him.
I think we're getting closer here.
We are getting close. There he is.
Look, we're dangerous now.
The man, the myth, the legend, David Howard. Just giving you a proper introduction, sir. Let me move you over and pop you over here on this screen. Been a guest on the show numerous times. Always great to have David here on the show with his expertise. Former FBI special agent, and certainly currently sitting Montana senator, but former FBI special agent, and was talking about, you talked about some of the stories, some of the things you did, Dave, back in Chicago, but he helped take down the judges in Chicago. I think there were, I may be wrong on this, I think it was 28 indictments. He took down 18 of 28 corrupt judges there and went undercover and did all that stuff. A lot of great background, great history. And as I was saying, Dave's from the old school FBI, back when it was all a little bit different than it is now, unfortunately. But we're always delighted to have David on the broadcast. David Howard, thanks so much for joining us here on Montana Gazette Radio.
Thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. It's my pleasure. First of all, before we get into what we're going to talk about here today, I got some documents. I sent you some documents. You've seen the coverage that we're putting out here on Montana Daily Gazette on the Whitefish Credit Union here. Give us, if you can, you have a unique viewpoint on things, Dave, because you come from that spiritual point of view as well. Foxhole Ministries, I mean, you preach the word, I think, just about every day or most every day. And you also are, a Montana senator, former FBI. You have a unique perspective on things. You have a sort of a secular law enforcement view and a sort of a biblical worldview on things as well. Give us your overall 30,000-foot view of how you think things are going in this country right now, David, with the mass amount of illegal immigrants coming across the borders. The White House saying that they're going to start literally taking text away from, removing texts that they don't agree with, social media, perhaps forced vaccinations. They're talking about the Delta variant coming out again, locking people down. Give us your overall view of what's going on, David. David Howard, Montana State Senator.
Well, when you look at what's going on in the world, I mean, my ministry, I have a radio program called The Voice of Truth's Wake Up Call. So I do a lot of research into the culture aspect of what's going on. And I've taught culture war presentations for at least the last 20 years. And what we're looking at, and I'm not exaggerating, we're looking at the overthrow of America's liberty and freedom and the pursuit of happiness in America today. I mean, I don't care how you say it, but the thing is this: when you get a president of the United States to stand up and say, our greatest problem is systemic racism, which doesn't exist. And then the second greatest problem is, white privilege or white, there's nothing that doesn't exist either. And then the third problem is almost a joke. I mean, I tell people this and they start laughing, but the third greatest problem is global warming. Well, we're feeling it right now in Montana. It happens every summer. And that's a lie too.
Indeed.
And the thing is everything they do today. I mean, I haven't lived in an era where everything spoken from the president, from fake news, which if you call them fake news today, you're being polite. It's lying news. I mean, it's designed to fool Americans into thinking there's a problem that doesn't exist. Now, you see, the reason the left has to create a problem is because what would they solve with all of this crud? I mean, when you open up your borders, the proof of the matter is they don't care about people. They don't care about humans, because when you open up the border, you enable the drug cartel to bring in millions and millions of pounds of drugs. And you're looking at probably over the next year or so, you're looking at close to 1 million Americans that will die from overdoses. No, they
and child trafficking. You didn't even mention the child trafficking and all that stuff, the human trafficking that goes on. I mean, that's
right. And, my old dad, he passed away when he was about 95 years old, but he would tell you this: if you can't find anything good in something, you are the problem. And the thing is this: what is the political left today? They still recognize themselves as Democrats. They're closer to Marxist, and they do not represent any normal Democrat in Montana. I mean, normal Democrats in Montana are still the John F. Kennedy style Democrat. John F. Kennedy loved his country, fought for his country. He had some differences, but you look at that when the debate between Nixon and Kennedy, they were talking about how to solve the problem. We're not talking about the solving the problem anymore. The Democrat Party, the secular regressives, I call them, because everything they want is pre-1775. And then when you go with that, you just want to add unfettered debauchery, sexual perversion along with that. I mean, I can tell you the English had a lot more morals than what we got today. And so, yeah, we're in a big hurt. I mean, we can't believe anything we hear. We have lying news combined with the president and the party to lie to us. And now he's even taking over the aspect of social media and trying to punish anyone that doesn't agree with him, which is a violation of our civil rights, our First Amendment rights. And then he's trying to create programs like the critical hate theory to make us all hate each other. I mean, I can tell you, when's the last time any normal American ever thought about race unless you heard it on TV? And that's the truth. You see, it doesn't exist. They have to create something out of nothing. And that's what they're doing.
Well, David, historically speaking, one of their main tactics is the divide and conquer. See, they don't. Now, why do you think Australia came out and said, we don't even want you having conversation? Did you see that video? We didn't even want you having conversations with other people. Well, is it because they spreading disease? No, it's because they don't want people talking, going, "Hey, we're getting the raw deal here. How come we're putting up with this?" Right? That's what they want to shut people up. That's why they want to muzzle people. They want to lock people in their house because they don't want them getting together. See, here's the thing: they've controlled pretty much all the social media. Only their message gets out on social media. So the next step is for people to come together and share their messages, and that's what they're trying to stop. Because once that happens, we outnumber them by 10,000 to 1. Their way of right. They just don't want us to come together.
That's right. It is what Americans have to realize is this: we have to individually stand. We cannot depend on politicians to protect us. We need to protect ourselves. I just finished a session in Helena where our governor is golden. Our lieutenant governor is golden. We passed all kinds of protection laws. Just to give you an idea what I just heard today, okay? We pass a law that no one can force you to take a vaccination. And guess what St. V's Hospital's doing? They're telling all the vaccinated nurses to walk around and put a sticker on their name tag, and they can have lunch with each other, but those who don't have a sticker can't do that, okay? I mean, give me a break. What in the heck are they doing? How does an employer think that they can just invent things for you down the road that you have to do that have nothing to do with your performance?
I think
I asked me what I could do, and I told them, listen, get 20 or 30 nurses together, walk into leadership and say, listen, if you don't take this away, we're gone. Believe me, that hospital can't do without 30 nurses. So force them back into reality.
Well, what I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to set up the scenario because they've already sort of they've let out their game plan. They've sort of let it out of the bag. When you heard this health official, this expert, whatever you want to call him on CNN, saying the biggest pandemic in the country these days are the unvaccinated. They're the biggest pandemic. So what they're trying to do, I believe, as I said, you go back to the old divide and conquer. That's why you have these stickers. See, that's another way to divide people. And then you know what they're going to do? They're going to say the people, and against all logic, right? The people that are not vaccinated, they're the ones causing all the problem for the vaccinated. But hold on a minute. If you're vaccinated, shouldn't you be protected? See, it's just a total disconnect. It's much like my body, my choice. Until I say I don't want to be vaccinated, That's my choice, and I'm a fascist, or I'm murdering Granny. I mean, it's just it's all a propaganda. It's all a trick. It's all fraud, David. It's all based upon fraud and lies. And if they get caught in one lie, they just lie their way out of it with another lie. So
the thing is this: years ago when we investigated the La Costa Nostra, organized crime, there's one thing that you found out that the Democrat Party has adopted. No matter what evidence you found on one of the players that you arrested in organized crime, they would never admit it. I mean, I could show them a video of them holding a gun and shooting a person, and they would say, no, that's not me. Well, wait a minute. We have not only the picture, we got this angle, we got that angle. This is positively you. No, it's not me. They never stop lying. And that's exactly what we're having today. But the thing is the neat thing that's going on, everybody I talk to, everyone from both sides of the aisle is upset about what's going on. They know this is a threat. They know this is a takeover of our country. They know these people have no concern for humans. I mean, I can't, it's this way. I have people say, how could they do that? How could they do that? I get that asked to me all the time. Well, the thing is, I'm asking this question. I was watching a nature program, and there's these lions, and they look over and they see this zebra that has a broken leg. And they all jump up and they run over there and they kill that zebra and they eat it. Nobody's asking, how could those lions do that? Because what we do is we don't identify what's happening today as predators, pure evil. They're totally focused on power and control, and they care nothing for America. They care only for themselves. And you watch, the more power they get, they'll start eating each other.
Oh, yeah, they always do. And, that's a nice segue into the topic for today when you talk about predators. I've sent you over I know that you, and thank you very much for your support of the Montana Daily Gazette. I know you read the news there, and we thank you so much for that, David. You're familiar with, I sent you over some information. I've sent you over some other documents concerning the Whitefish Credit Union. Let's pop over here real quick here to the original article that I wrote here. I don't know. I guess it's been probably a couple of weeks now, I guess. So let me pop this open. Here we go. I basically brought out evidence that shows that Whitefish Credit Union is involved in really, I think, fraud. And dear David, I sent you over some definitions here. If you look at the code, let's go down to Alan Carver's report, which I've cited many times. Just this last line right here: it is important to note that borrowers with member business loans were not notified by Whitefish Credit Union they would not be loaning any more money on development loans, including existing loans. Now, if they had told, and like he said here in his conclusion, David, that they clearly committed and violated not only verbal agreements to finance the entire project, but committed a breach of contract. So let me ask you something, David. Oops, wrong button here. Let me go here. That's James Wesley Rawles. He's our old. There you are, right there. So if a bank goes into a loan and secures a loan with a member, knowing that they're not going to loan any more money after this initial loan, even though it's a 3-stage loan, and the regulatory commission's told them you're not allowed to loan any more money. If they continue to lead the member on and the borrower on that they are going to loan more money, knowing they're going to foreclose on them, based upon the definition that I read, David, that's fraud. That's obtaining property through fraud. Theft by threat or deception. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but theft by threat or deception. That seems to be a theft by deception to me. I'm not the expert, David. You've had years in the FBI. Like I said, took down the Chicago crooked judges. You've had a chance to look over this. I'm not asking you to make any determinations today, except, do you think this stuff warrants more of an investigation based upon your professional opinion, looking at maybe not all the evidence, but what you've looked at so far? David Howard.
Well, let me recap in a simple way what I think they're doing, and you tell me if I'm correct. Let's just talk about, let's say somebody gets a home loan, okay? Well, what happens when you're buying a home is it's more money than you can afford, correct? Okay. So let's say you have a $300,000 loan. Now, somewhere in the contract, that loan is going to be like, for instance, you're going to get the first 100,000 to start the project, build your house. You're going to get another $100,000 down the road to get to the next stage of building the house. And then when you almost get it through, you get $100,000 to do the finish. Okay. And what you're talking about is they give you the first $100,000, and then they say, we're not going to give you the second 100,000, but in the loan problem, if you can't pay off what we've given you, we're going to take the property. Is that the game?
Well, pretty much. Well, it's worse than that. So I just talked to someone yesterday, as a matter of fact. What they do also is they add properties that you've already secured, that you already have paid for. They add it into the note after you sign it, before they send it to the title company. They encumber other properties. Then they foreclose on the original property and take all of them. Now, let me ask you this question, David. And again, I think you worked actually on the banking in the FBI. You worked for a period of time in the banking fraud section. So, and I don't expect you to know. Right. So let's say, for example, we're hypothetically saying that I've got a house worth $500,000, and I come across and I owe $150,000 left on it. I come across hard times. They foreclose on me. Bank forecloses on me, takes the house, sells it for $500,000. They take their $150,000 that I owed them, plus bank fees and whatever attorney's fees. What happens to the rest of that money that's left over? Does the bank get to keep that money? Or does the bank have to give that money back to the person? I'm understanding that the bank has to give that money back to the person because the bank's not in the business the bank's not in the real estate business. They're in the loaning money and getting interest from loaning money type of business. Any thoughts on that, David?
Well, the key ingredient here is that if the motive is fraud, in other words, what you're doing is kind of like a shell game. So that, I mean, it really, when you look at the RICO statute, this kind of falls into that, because the thing is, you can't be a bank. I mean, they are insured just like the FDIC is. They're under what it is called NCUSIF. Okay. Now, once they have that designation and they do anything from a fraud or a swindle aspect, that is a federal crime. Okay. And then if it's going across state lines, does this bank exist in other areas other than Montana?
I think it's just in Montana, but yeah, just Montana.
Okay. Are they using the phone? Are they using the mail?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, you just gained interstate nature. All right. And so, what you got is you have racketeering. And what you're asking me here is all of these different questions. Literally, the FBI needs to get involved. They need to correspond their investigation with a U.S. attorney, and they need to start walking down this process and gathering all this information. You certainly have enough to start this investigation. It's kind of like what we used to say in the FBI is, if it's too good to be true, it needs to be investigated so you can find out if it is too good to be true. So you're hitting on the right article. That's where it needs to go. It needs to be investigated, and someone needs to pull together a process. I hope they will pull together a grand jury, and so they can bring a lot of these people in and offer to let them testify under oath, and pull it up, build it. And if you don't have it, you go on down the road. But if you do, you prosecute.
Well, I have a document here, and I sent a couple of them over to you. I just want to get your just to get your professional viewpoint on this. This is Andrew is the CPA. The particular person I'm working with here, Dennis Thornton, he actually reached out to the FBI and filed a report that his property was stolen, and he reached out to the IRS and published a report that says his property was stolen. Let me just ask you something, David. You're former FBI, and you've probably had some dealings with the IRS. I'm quite certain, probably in your investigative career, probably maybe even nailed some people on tax fraud or not there, but IRS, avoiding taxes, that type of stuff. What is the penalty for filing a false claim? I mean, when you file a claim against the FBI and say this person stole millions of dollars of my property, and it's not true, you put yourself at tremendous jeopardy at being put in jail at that point, don't you, David? I mean, you just don't file false claims with the FBI and the IRS if you're trying to pull some sort of scam. That's not what you do, right? I mean, talk to me about that.
Well, you don't make complaints to federal law enforcement without evidence. I've taken a lot of complaints over the years. And the thing is this, people know the who, when, where, how, and why. At least they think they do. And they lay out this process, but it doesn't take a lot of work to start substantiating a lot of the different things that you're talking about. I mean, my goodness, you can go down to property records and find out, okay, did these people own this record? What is the contract that they signed? How did the bank receive ownership? I mean, you can just walk right through it. I mean, and that's can give you the emphasis to get things done.
Well, David, I'm going to ask you here, and again, you don't necessarily even have to know specific names, but in your history dealing with fraud and these type of things, would it seem natural? Would it seem a common thing to you? And again, I know you don't know all cases, and it's just a general question. If I had a dozen people that had 800 credit records, had loaned and had borrowed and paid back millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars collectively over the course of the last 15 to 18 to 20 years, all these people have, at the prime of their life, when they've got all their properties that they've worked for their whole lives, they're pulling it all together for their retirement, and all 12 of them at least all decided to just bail out on their obligations and kind of give the credit union the middle finger all at one time and ruin their whole entire lives. Does that seem like that's something that all in the Flathead Valley and all doing properties that are worth a lot of money? Does that seem fishy to you, at least, David? I mean, does that at least raise a little bit a red flag in your investigative mind?
Well, certainly it comes back to the too good to be true aspect. But you see, that's why you need to investigate it. I mean, I think I told you in a previous interview, one time we were working political corruption. We were working a county commissioner, and all indications was he was taking bribes and doing all kinds of stuff. We investigated him for about 3 months, and the three of us that did the investigation found out that he wasn't doing anything wrong. And we went out that night and had dinner together and celebrated that we found the truth. Our object was not to create anything. Our object was to nail down the truth. And it's interesting, but when you start looking into stuff that is fraud like this, it usually ends up being like, oh my gosh, wait, how does this happen? And then you're going to the next one. What is this part? What is that part of play? I mean, it starts getting bigger and bigger. As a matter of fact, what you end up having to do is narrow it down, like trying to pull it through a Ventura tube. So you can, sometimes the crimes are so vast, you can't prove them all. You don't have enough resources, times, and anything. So you get it down through a Ventura tube and you hit what is provable, the easiest that you can do it. In other words, you don't charge him 100 different charges. You charge them with 6 that you can really nail down. So it needs to be investigated. There's just no doubt.
What would be the difference, and just for our viewers' sake here, again, I know you're not an attorney, what would be the difference between launching an investigation or launching like a grand jury? Would a grand jury be something, I mean, would they would have access to all the files? Because I know there were some files that were sealed, some some evidence that was tossed. This particular person that I'm working with, Dennis Thornton, he paid a lot of money for an expert witness testimony, a literal expert witness in many court cases, and they sealed that because it really showed that he was in the right, and it exonerated him pretty much. What's your thoughts on that, David?
Well, I kind of get uneasy when you start preventing evidence from being exposed. I mean, what's the purpose? I mean, the thing is this, it's been my experience. It's kind of like catching your child in the kitchen and you think they've been in the cookie jar. Instantly, if they haven't been, you're going to see both hands up. You know, Grandpa, I didn't have any cookies. Okay. Well, it's easy. You know, it's called transparency. And when you're innocent, it comes out really quick. I mean, people volunteer evidence that keeps them from being guilty. But when they start hiding the evidence, that puts some suspicion on it. Let me just remind
the viewers and the people that are watching this video. This is the evidence that they hid, again, from Alan Carver, 34 years investigator for the National Credit Union Association. This is the evidence they hid, folks. Whitefish Credit Union clearly committed and violated not only a verbal agreement to finance the entire Thornton project to a totally approximately $7 million, but also committed a breach of written contract involving the loaning of $500,000 in subordination of their lien. That was blocked, David. That was kept from court in Mr. Thornton's defense, and next thing you know, he doesn't have his property. That is, as you stated, I mean, I know you're not there, and the judge will say you can't can't question me from, out. Forget all that noise. Can you think of anything in your investigative career? Why would something like that from an expert witness be sealed other than to protect the credit union? I mean, I know you're speculating, but can you think of anything else? Any other reason they would seal this? Again, he's got the proof of his expert witness testimony in numerous case. You may have seen it over and over again. What's your thoughts, David? Why would you seal something like that that would clearly show Whitefish Credit Union acted improperly?
Well, the only time I've ever seen any evidence by a judge be sealed is when it revealed witnesses' names that we thought wouldn't live till the end of the day if it was revealed. And it was to protect somebody from harm. So I don't know, other than that, I can't imagine.
I don't see any witnesses' names here in here for sure. Kicking back again here, David, to what we got going on in just the world in general. This is just one example, seemingly, of the systemic corruption that we have in almost all areas. I just had James Wesley Rawles on here previously on the show here, and I'm going to ask you sort of the same thing that I asked him. Both of you are Christians, we're all Christians, and I wanted to ask this to you. It's been proposed to me that the reason that we're seeing all this lawlessness, we're seeing people walking out of stores carrying giant things full of free goods, pulling people out of the streets, out of their cars and beating them up on the streets, lighting things on fire still, all the stuff you see, right? All the homelessness, the drug use, all that. It's been suggested that God, although he will still keep a hedge of protection around his people, God has lifted his hedge of protection off America as a whole. He's taken his protection away from us. That's why we see all the lawlessness and the evil running rampant. Do you care to comment on that, David?
Well, I don't know the mind of God, and I will not pretend to know. But the key thing is this: we have to understand. Sometimes you look at the Bible and you understand that many times God wins battles to show that he's there. It's when we can't do anything. Remember the story about the Israelites losing the battle, and God told Moses to raise his hands in the air. And Aaron, I think, was trying to help him hold his hands because he couldn't hold them long enough. We forget that when Joseph was down in the valley fighting and dying for what they were doing. The key thing is this: the most powerful thing on this earth is the spoken word of God that is supported by the Holy Spirit of God. And what we're not doing enough of is exposing this evil that's happening. That's why they want to shut us up. The thing is this: the evil side knows the power of the spoken word of God many times better than us Christians. We have to, it's like me encouraging those nurses to stand up against that evil at St. B's. We have to start as individually, start standing up. And that's the only thing that's going to protect this. As far as what's going on, I mean, I can see why we would think, my goodness, what is happening here? But you see, Americans have forgotten that we received an inheritance of liberty when God built this country through his providence. All you have to be is a little bit of a scholar of the Revolutionary War, and you know that God played a major role over 50 times with President that became President Washington. The thing is this, we're forgetting that this inheritance, it would be like God giving us a gift, right? He's given us a gift, and what are we going to do? We're going to throw it in the trash? We're going to give it away? Are we going to protect it? Are we going to covet it? Liberty is something to be coveted because it's Christ's liberty. If without that liberty, we don't have the ability to have the pursuit of happiness. We don't have liberty, the ability to strive, work, and determine our own destiny. We have to realize the other side's ideal organization that they want to put us in is a penitentiary, but there's no liberty.
Well, we're in a prison without walls right now, it seems like. Why, David, if the latest polls, and I think it's dropped down some now, it's in the 60%, but if 68% of Americans consider themselves Christian, how come they're not all lining up in mass outside these libraries when they do these library transvestite story time hours where you got, grown men dressed like women flashing their private parts to kids? And these parents, I just don't get it, David. These parents, they revel in the opportunity to bring their kids to this debauchery. I mean, it's just from the pits of hell. How come there's not more Christians, quote unquote, standing up to that? And I'll say to you why I think it is because the pastors have failed. We may have talked about this before, but the pastors overall have failed, I think, this nation. Now, I know we all have certain responsibility. We all have free will. But that aside, I think the pastors have done a poor job, and I think we're primed to be captured right now, man. We're almost at the worst spot I've ever seen we've been in since I've been alive. David.
Well, we've discussed one of the books I wrote is The Attack on Christianity, and in there I explained the normal Christian church today. That people come to the church and they think the pastor's going to go out there and win the battle. It's like I gave the example of the pastor goes out by himself to play football with 11 demons on the other side of the field, on the other side. And he has to hike the ball to himself, run around the corner and throw the ball to himself. It's easy to, and I know that pastors have fallen down, but I can tell you, if you want a strong, bold pastor, get behind him, sit down, start explaining that it is evil not to speak into evil. Yep. And let's stop fooling ourselves that politics is something that Christians don't speak into. I mean, Satan is so smart, right? He even got Christians to stop speaking God's truth that we know never comes back void into the most evil thing that exists in America, and that's politics. Personally, when somebody tells me, well, Dave, that's political, I say, yep, you're right. It's biblical. It's biblical because there's nothing going on today. Like you said, debauchery, our borders, everything they're doing is biblical. God made borders, all right, and for a purpose. The thing is this, is our pastors energizing the body? I see people today crying for some leadership. And we go, and the churches have turned into kind of social things. Like we go and we listen to the praise music, but we don't understand that when the pagans come for the Christians, they might not find any. They might find a weird kind of pagan Christianity where we're all about how we feel and all this other kind of stuff. I was talking to a guy the other day and was talking about, well, it's all about love. Well, I said, you know that Christian love is an action word. When you read the love chapter, It's love is. We do something. And I said, if you don't believe that, just read that example of the guy that just loved lions, and lions won't attack you as long as you're in a car, right? Well, this lion comes walking by, and what does he do? He loves this lion so much he can't resist. He goes out and he pets the lion on the head, and the lion takes his arm off. I don't care how much you love that lion. He's still a lion.
Is that the First Corinthians chapter 13 chapter you're talking about? Is that right? The chapter, love
Yeah,
chapter.
absolutely.
Okay, so we've got other books that you've written here, David. Let's talk about this: The Christian Art of Verbal Chess,
Yes.
Speaking Life into Others. I know that you have some background sort of in communications. I know that have you taught classes and stuff on that, David, about how to communicate properly? Or is that
I created a training program called The Art of Verbal Chess.
Okay.
I did this, believe it or not, in 1998. So it's dating me. I'm only 39 twice, but
Indeed, of course. You look great for 39, as a matter of fact.
Anyway, I did this all over the country. And so 2 years ago, I took upon myself to write a book about communication. And the thing is people should understand that the Christian art of verbal chess, the king in verbal chess is the persona of Christ. It's our character. It's our moral standard. And then when you look at the queen, it's the art of giving grace. So what I did is I put together a book that's it's got some stories in it. It's not a textbook, and it's based on Christianity. It's based on the Bible. It's biblical. And what it does is it teaches us how to speak life into each other. And that is so very important today. And that was the reason I wrote it.
You go right on to Amazon there and type in The Christian Art of Verbal Chess, Speaking Life into Others by David Howard, our guest here today. Tell us a little bit about Foxhole Ministry, David. I know that, I don't know how many stations you're on. Go ahead.
Was really neat. We just, there's a organization called, let's see, my mind just went blank here. It must be my age. But anyway, it is an organization that through shortwave radio reaches out to 120 countries.
Wow.
All of it, yes. And they've just taken my radio program, my 3-minute radio program, and they're going to start broadcasting that over to 120 nations.
Oh, praise God for
which
that,
is
brother.
Fantastic. We're on about 75 radio stations now in 25 states. They tell me our audience is between 3 and 5 million. And we do a short 3-minute program called The Voice of Truth Wake Up Call 5 days a week. And I kind of, it's quite an experience to do 5 sermons a week that are only 3 minutes long.
Well, we're going to be going. That's fantastic, man. Great. Congratulations. Good for you. Praise God for that. Getting the word out to these other countries. We're going to be launching our show here on KHDN. As a matter of fact, as I was saying in the first part of the first hour, as I'm expecting the computer equipment for the brain for the whole entire programming thing to be showing up here in the next couple of days. So we're probably 2 or 3 weeks away, but maybe when we get set up on KHDN, and then we're going to be expanding, I think, over to Central Montana as well, to Great Falls and to Helena. Why don't we see if we can get your broadcast on our show, David, if we can get you on our network. So, we're a Montana program, and you're a Montana guy, so I think that'd be appropriate to have you on the show. We already published your great op-eds on Montana Daily Gazette, and thank you for writing those. They're always very insightful and very, very timely and accurate. We do appreciate that for your contributions.
Well, you see, the left knows how important truth is. That's why they lie. You got to realize the most important thing in the world is truth, but the second most important thing is a lie.
Yeah,
it's the reason why it represents itself as the truth. And today, what we're dealing with is somebody ought to read the interchange between Satan and Eve, because that's what we're getting. Half of what Satan said to Eve was true.
I'm sure I know you've probably read some of the works of C.S. Lewis, some of the great works of C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
But have you ever had a chance to read the Screw Tape Letters? I'm sure you probably have.
Yes, I have.
It's great. It's great stuff, folks. If you haven't read that, Screw Tape Letters, you got to put that on your suggested reading list for sure. Right. David Howard, anything else that you want to say here? Just to recap, and I guess I just want to get this once again on audio, just for sake of a recap for the show. In your view, based upon your background, your years of investigative experience with the FBI, it's your thoughts based upon the evidence that I sent you and that you've reviewed that there should be, at least if nothing else, an investigation started into the Whitefish Credit Union for perhaps some misdeeds or RICO type activity that they've been involved in. Do you care to follow up and comment on that before we let you go?
Well, you see, absolutely, because if the
Whitefish Credit Union.
Yeah, Whitefish Credit Union has nothing to hide. The investigator walks in the door and they lay it all out and they show it to him. It's and then the investigator comes and checks up on it. It's quickly on and it's quickly over. But if they can't, and if you start interviewing the people in the different aspects, you start looking at it and you start seeing that there's an organized fraud here, because that's usually what it is. It's organized crime. And that becomes relatively easy to prove because it keeps happening over and over. It's the same MO. They don't change their method of operation. And so, yes, it should be investigated.
And lastly, we had an investigator on here. Actually, we have a letter, and I don't think I sent that over to you, but he was the chief prosecutor for the National Credit Union Association, and he has successfully prosecuted over 3,000 corrupt credit unions and for crimes. That's just to say there are credit unions out there that are involved in crimes and banks, and I mean, it's not, people shouldn't go, I can't believe that they've done that. They should probably believe it because it goes on all the time, does it not, David? Just lastly, just finish with that.
If there's people involved, I mean, haven't we all been born in sin? I mean, my goodness. No, if there's people involved in it and there's money involved in it, my goodness, there's going to be fraud. Yeah. And sometimes, good organizations take care of themselves. In Chicago, we would get First Interstate Bank in Chicago they were constantly calling us if they had executives that they thought were doing something wrong. And that's the key. The key is that we always have to have law enforcement. That's why when you look at the left today, why they want to abolish law enforcement is they want to create chaos.
Oh, yeah.
So they can take away our freedoms to fix it.
Yep. Order out of chaos. Yep. Order out of chaos. They create the chaos, and the order is everybody turn their guns in and be good minions of the state in toadies, and everything will be just fine. And of course, we know how that ends. That ends with the image that you sent. That ends with guys like you and me kneel down with a bullet in the back of our head, being forced into a pit. That's the end result if we don't stand up now, folks.
It's interesting how they're always referring to January 6th. Look at only a very small portion of people were so fed up that they broke into the Capitol there. And what's interesting is I saw some film lately. The police officers in the back were letting them
in. Sure they did.
Yeah, I mean, if there probably was 500,000 people there. If they would have really wanted to take that place over, they'd have taken it over.
David, I agree. I saw video, David, of these 3 or 4 guys in some chamber, writing a note to Nancy Pelosi, and there's a guy armed. He's an armed guard there, or security cop, whatever it is. Just letting them go. You couldn't have pulled out your gun and said, hey, everybody on the ground, stop it, get down. Nope. Just let him do it. Didn't even touch his... I mean, there's something funny going on.
They literally murdered that one gal that was in the military. I mean... there's nothing in federal law enforcement or any law enforcement that enables you to shoot and kill somebody.
Nope.
Nobody's life is in danger.
Nope. Wasn't
no
even
one's
armed.
life was in danger.
Wasn't even armed. Why not use mace, non-lethal force, stun gun, something.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to investigate that one. I'd like to figure out what was the connection to the poor lady that was killed and the shooter. I mean, I would be wondering all kinds of
questions. Yeah, no kidding. Maybe we need to get you on the case, David. All right, David Howard, former FBI investigator, Montana State Senator. Thanks so much. Any websites real quick you want to give out before we let you go? We want to send people
Just go on to foxholeministry.com and also go into our app. If you go on to Google or Apple, it's just Foxhole Ministry, and you can pull up our app, which is really, you can even listen to Christian radio on our app.
Wow, fantastic stuff. David Howard, always great to have you on the broadcast, my friend. God bless you, and we'll talk soon. Thanks so much for all your work and for your help, with me, your expertise on this investigation. And we look forward to talking to you again soon, brother. Thanks again.
All right, God bless you.
God bless you, buddy. Take care. All right, folks, there goes David Howard, former FBI investigator, current Montana senator, and he, in his statement just now, said that there should be an investigation into Whitefish Credit Union. That's his viewpoint, his thoughts. Again, help take down the Chicago corrupt judges in Chicago. Knows corruption, knows law enforcement, and he said that there should be an investigation into Whitefish Credit Union for potential crimes. So we agree. Thanks so much for looking in here. That's going to be all for today. You can support us by going to MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com, or MontanaDailyGazette.com. And check out the new Montana Murder Hornet podcast. It'll be J.D. Hall and I will be doing the podcast at least once, maybe twice a week. And you can support us by going to Patreon and typing in Montana Murder Hornet podcast. Thanks so much for joining us again here on the broadcast. My name is James White. Until next time, thanks so much for joining us. Bye now.